Hello YouTube, Wes here, checking back in with a brand new episode of the Vinyl Survivor for you. Hope you're all doing well, having a great day or night when it is you're watching this. This is the Vinyl Survivor show. This is a show where I talk about sort of my deep listens of records, what I thought of each one, and whether they're going to be staying here back in the collection or going on to somebody else. So let's go ahead and get into this batch of records. Got an interesting batch of records to talk to you about tonight. Okay, starting off is a band, a local Gainesville, Florida band from right here in Gainesville, Florida. And that is the Savant of Soul with their album Downtown Sound. Savant of Soul are just what they say they are. It's a soul group, sort of a modern, very funky soul group. A bunch of really young guys, young guys and girls. Really cool group, really diverse, and they got a really nice sound. Really fun to go see play live. And they did press a vinyl record on Swamp Records, sort of a local label here, so that's pretty cool. So I grabbed that at the show. Yeah, nice gatefold album of theirs. Custom labels they have. This was pressed at Welcome to 1979, which I think is like United Pressing, basically. So yeah, not a real high quality pressing, but a cool piece to have from a local band, and I was glad to add this one to the collection. All right, next up we have a classic blues album from Folkways Records. This is Big Bill Brunzi Sings Folk Songs. Smithsonian Folkways. This is the reissue of this album that Vinyl Me Please did. This actually happens to be the very first Vinyl Me Please album I ever got. February 2016, I believe, is when this one was I don't know, released, issued by Vinyl Me Please. It was the album of the month for that month. February seems to be their sort of classic reissue month. I've noticed the theme there, and the 3 Februaries we've had, or including this February, they've all been sort of classic reissues. So yeah, really nice recreation of a Folkways record with the sort of almost laminated vinyl sort of textured cover, and then just sort of a pasted on thing here, and then like a third of the way here on the strip that gives the album tracks and information and stuff. So really nicely done by Vinyl Me Please. And they do recreate that sort of blue and silver label, purple and silver. It's more of a purplish color here. But yeah, very nicely recreated the album there. And yeah, this is just a really nice collection of classic bluesy folk songs. Of course, being a Smithsonian Folkways record, it does have a nice booklet here with information about the artist and the songs and the meaning behind the songs and all that kind of thing, much as you would ever want to know about this. So yeah, they did a really nice job of reissuing that album, and that one's a keeper as well. All right, next up, moving on to something completely different. Keep it interesting here. This is the electronic music group Boards of Canada with their album titled Giagatti. 2002 was the original release of this album. I did not discover Boards of Canada until much later. But yeah, very ambient electronic sound work. Gets glitchy at times. Really cool stuff. Really late night listening kind of stuff, definitely, in my opinion. Really great to put on late night, even though it's tough to get up every 12 to 15 minutes and flip sides. This is on 3 LPs, stretched across 3 LPs. So it's a nice one there. There's a nice gatefold on that one. This is an original. This is one of the warp reissues of this album. The inner sleeves have all of this sort of film stock kind of look to them. Very nice. There's one of the discs. Black vinyl, 3 LPs, as I said. Some of these Boards of Canada reissues were pressed at MPO in France, and some of them were pressed somewhere in the UK. I think the ones pressed at MPO are better than the ones that were done in the UK. I think this might be, I'm not sure if this is one of the ones that's done. It doesn't have an MPO stamp on it, so I'm thinking it's one of the ones from the UK. These reissues also included a sticker with each album, so there is the sticker that goes with Giugotti, download code as well, which is nice. So yeah, that's Boards of Canada. I'm sure if you're into electronic ambient kind of music at all, you know Boards of Canada. But yeah, I definitely highly recommend checking them out if you haven't. If you think you might be interested in ambient music, this is definitely somewhere where you won't go wrong. Whatever you get from Boards of Canada, their stuff is always killer. Okay, moving on to a piece of hip-hop here. This is album from 1999 from the hip-hop duo EPMD. This is their album titled Out of Business. This was sort of after they had already broken up and they got back together to do this album, and yeah, it's just sort of mediocre at best, I guess you could say. You know, if I'm an EPMD fan, I love their original classic albums, so that's the main reason I picked this up, is just because I'm a fan of EPMD, and they're still fun to listen to. There are some good rhymes on here and stuff, good little, you know, they're really good at bouncing back and forth between each other, and really interesting that way. So some good stuff on here, but definitely not not a classic album, and not something to sort of seek out. This is something I bought cheaply at the local. Actually, I bought this at the one of the local record stores here in town. Did do some nice custom inner sleeves with liner notes on them, so that's pretty cool. Better than just plain inner sleeves, which is nice. And then a black Def Jam 2000 label. So yeah, for me, this is staying in my collection just because I love EPMD, but not something I would say you have to seek out or anything. Okay, moving on to something that is definitely not hip-hop. This is actually the latest album from Elton John, I believe the latest album, titled One Crazy Night. 2016 is when this one was released. Or Wonderful Crazy Night, not One Crazy Night. I think the title track, Wonderful Crazy Night, was the sort of single from this album. I did not like this album nearly as much as I liked the one previous to this one, The Diving Board. I love The Diving Board. This album is just, yeah, it's okay. Just not as good as in my opinion. Did come with an inner sleeve with lyrics and photos of the group there. Got, you know, reunited with some of his classic band members there. And that one's on black vinyl as well with some custom labels. Alright, next up, moving on to something completely different. Once again, as always, we got Fairport Convention with a Movable Feast. This is a live recording from Sydney Opera House, Rainbow Theatre, London, and Fairfield Hall in Croydon. Yeah, so Fairport Convention are kind of a English folk prog group, progressive English folk kind of group. So you're getting some of those progressive rock and roll, kind of very flamboyant, very flashy kind of musicianship. But it also has a very acoustic kind of feel to it, a very folky kind of English feel to it. Cool group. Another one that sort of I got turned on to here in the VC. Something I wouldn't have really known much about, but it was cool to learn about them. And now that when I'm out and I see their records, I know what I'm gonna see there. Inner sleeve does feature some nice photos of them performing live. And this one's on a nice Island label. I really do like that label a lot. And interestingly, I don't know if you can see that, but the label on this side has no printing on it at all. So, guessing that's some sort of a mistake, because this label is just side A and it only lists the tracks on side A, and yeah, this one has multiple tracks on it, but there's no information whatsoever. It's just a blank label. So I got a one-of-a-kind kind of thing here. Fairport Convention, cool group. Wouldn't say necessarily start with this one because it's just a live album, but yeah, cool find and definitely something that will be staying in my collection. Okay, next thing I have to share with you is a solo album from Tony Banks. This one is titled A Curious Feeling. 1979 is the date on this one on Charisma. Yeah, I don't know what to say about this one. It's been a while since I've listened to these records. I remember liking this one, but I don't remember exactly what it sounds like, but I do remember liking it. So I can't really say much about it, but yeah, as I said, I liked it. It's staying in the collection, and it's on this Charisma label here. Tony Banks, A Curious Feeling. I remember liking it. I don't have much to say about it right now. Okay, next up, moving on to another hip hop classic here. This is J Dilla with this album Doughnuts. Classic sort of mixture of different beats and stuff he was working on while he was in the hospital. He ended up passing away and not surviving, but some interesting stuff here. I struggle with J Dilla. I struggle with this album. Yes, there's some amazing beats, amazing sort of tracks on here, but to me it's kind of unfinished, it's unpolished, it's not complete. So it sounds like, you know, sort of like an album of outtakes. It's not a cohesive kind of thing. There's no lyrics, it's just beats, and I struggle with it, you know. I think J Dilla was an amazing producer. He was a great rapper as well. Yeah, I struggle with this stuff because it's not complete. But yeah, it was cool to hear this and cool to have it on vinyl, and it's definitely something I'll be keeping in my collection because it is a classic, but maybe not something I would go to sort of sit down and listen and have an experience. It's more of a sort of a collector's piece and something to sort of go back and take bits and pieces from and sample different bits and those kind of things. It's a 2 LP set, black vinyl. Nothing too fancy about that. I think Vinyl Me Please did a nice pressing of this at one point. There's been some other pressings of it through the years that have been pretty nice, but this is just a really basic 2 LP pressing of it. Was not expensive at all, so yeah, that one's staying in the collection, but I'm not in love with it. It's just a cool piece of history from an awesome producer, and yeah, J Dilla's Doughnuts. Okay, this next album I have to talk about was actually a VCLT from a contest prize win from Bill's Box of Sound, Bill Camerata. This is Baird Hearsey with Year of the Ear. He sent to me. Or actually, I picked out of a list of stuff he was offering as prizes. Don't remember a lot about this. I believe it's some jazz, some sort of mid-70s fusion-y kind of jazz stuff. Do remember liking this one as well. Did have this one marked as a keeper. So yeah, don't have much to say about this one either, but it is a keeper and I did enjoy it. And that one's on the Bent Records label, Bent Ear Records label. Okay, last but not least, finishing off with Mr. Paul Simon and Hearts and Bones. I think maybe I featured this album before on a previous edition of the Vinyl Survivor show. That particular one had a slight warp to it, I think, was the issue. But yeah, great album from Paul Simon. If you're one of those people who loves Graceland, from that sort of period of Paul Simon's work, you're going to like this one as well. I actually prefer this to Graceland. Really like the tracks Think Too Much. There's sort of two different, it's sort of a theme that runs throughout the album, and it was I like those tracks. Hearts and Bones is one of the hits on here. It's the title track. Song About the Moon. I want to write a song about the moon. Very good album from Paul Simon, so I definitely highly recommend this one if you're if you don't have it for some reason and you're into Paul Simon, check this one out. Nice inner sleeve with lyrics on it. Some photos there too as well. Warner Brothers label and not warped. Nicely. 1983 is the year on this one. This album actually started out as a potential reunion with Art Garfunkel. They did the concert in Central Park. They were talking about getting together and working on a new album. Some of these songs actually were part of that beginning of them to work together again, and then it just didn't work out. It fell out, so this turned out to be just sort of another Paul Simon solo album. So yeah, that's going to do it for this episode of The Vinyl Survivor. Hope you enjoyed the show. Hope you enjoyed watching. Everything here survived today, so that was really awesome. A nice, awesome batch of records. Always love that. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, great night, and we'll see you again real soon. Cheers.